So consumer pessimism. Actually, investment pessimism, the same thing. I told you, the stories don't matter. Is that right? So, okay, the graph, we did the graph. More likely you get a question like this, algebraic form. Now, intuition. How should I start my intuition part? Remember? Intuitive explanation. So, consumer pessimism is what? At any level of income, disposable income, what happens? Sorry? Consumption, yeah, you see? Shock. So if the question was investors' pessimism, the first line is investment goes down, and the rest is exactly the same. You see, that's my point. My point here is everything looks very, very similar. Okay? So, yes, consumption falls. What is next? You know that consumption is part of planned expenditure. You see, it doesn't matter the first line. The second line and the rest would be the same. Did you see that? It's so easy. Is that right? Everything is very. So consumption falls, planned expenditure falls, the rest is just the same. Okay? So can you see that? It means what? Demand. There will be excess supply because firms cannot sell enough. Is that right? So what happens? They have to put their production back into inventories. Is that right? So inventory levels start going up, but inventory space is limited. So what happens? Firms are pushed to reduce their output. Okay? So output falls. You see, guys, this is very important. This point is very crucial because this point you go from goods market to money market, from explanation point of view. So demand for money falls, demand for bonds rises. So people tend to buy bonds. Is that right? Can you see that? You see, when I don't consume, what do? I save more. Okay. So you see, when I am not actually, let's talk about that intuitively a little bit. So when people are pessimistic, so it means they think economy is not going well. So instead of consumption, I save for rainy days. So if I want to go to vacation, I postpone it. Is that right? I am not going to order a new, nicer furniture. I postpone it until I become optimistic. Is that right? So, but what do I do with money? I mean, income. I buy and save. Buy bonds, save. Is that right? I may lose my job. Who knows? And I maybe your house is down, so house owners feel poorer. Okay, a few months ago when housing market was on the top in Toronto, including myself, I was happy with my house, you know. So but now it doesn't look good. Okay, so be safe. I buy bonds. So, but if, don't forget that, if everybody is pessimistic, then what happens? Everybody tries to buy bonds. When everybody is trying to buy bonds, who is selling bonds? All right? So what happens is, all of a sudden, bonds price jumps up. Okay? So interest rate falls, investment rises. So short-run equilibrium. See that? Yes, everyone? Actually, here, actually I forgot to mention it here. We have something called, in economics, self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So actually, let me here, I think I uploaded the wrong file because there is a file that I added that one. So yeah, this is the right file. I told you, I continuously adjust my notes. Oh, okay, this is better. See, I added this little comment here. You can add that. You see? This is very important, especially if you plan to take CO6. They talk about this in CO6 a lot. Okay, so this is called self-fulfilling prophecy in economics. Self-fulfilling prophecy means if people's expectations go in some directions, maybe people's expectations are wrong, but it doesn't matter. The problem is those expectations materialize in reality. So you see here, I assume that my shock was what? People became pessimistic. Suppose people became pessimistic for no reason. Of course, people always have the reasons, okay? But suppose absolutely for no reason. So suppose people think economy goes to a recession sooner or later, for no reason. But look what happens. Economy really goes to recession. Did you see that? Income falls. This is called self-fulfilling. That is sometimes problem. Most of the time this is a problem. In CO6, when you are fighting with inflation and you study that, you will see that's why fighting with inflation is difficult and costly. Because when people think we have inflation, it's very hard to reduce inflation because of this self-fulfilling prophecy. So in economics, expectations are self-fulfilling, unfortunately. So if they work against you, you are really out of luck. You are doomed, unless you use them in your own favor. Okay, so expectations are important. In CO6, they talk about that a lot. Okay. Okay. We talked about what? Here I showed you a shock to goods market. I asked. See, there is no difference between policies and shocks. There is no difference between policies and shocks. I mean, so as long as you know the shock or policy is expansionary or contractionary, result is the same. The same thing for the shocks to money market. Okay, you remember a shock? By the way, a shock is what? A shock is a change in economy which is not decided by policymaker. You remember? Increase in G, increase in T, they are decided by policymakers. But consumer optimism, consumer pessimism, they are not decided by policymakers. So the same thing for money market. Okay? Suppose you remember for money market construction, you remember curve? So policy we use expansionary, contractionary monetary policy. Now let's talk about the shock. Suppose online banking is expanding. So we talked about this before. When online banking is expanding, I put extra exercises in your tutorial questions. So ATMs, credit cards, etc. So that means demand for money shrinks. See, this is not a policy. It's something like technological progress in banking industry. Is that right? Okay, guys, can you tell me what happens here? Suppose because of online banking, expansion of online banking, demand for money falls. So from graphical point of view, what happens? Yeah, it should be easy. Demand for money goes down. For any level of interest rate, any level, you see, here we have a functional shift. Income is the same, interest rate is the same, but demand for money goes down. How do we show it in this graph? How do we show it in this graph? Yeah? It's in the question. Demand for money falls, you see? So demand, you remember? Different income levels, different demand for money. I don't know how many you have, I don't care. Whatever you have, all of them shift to the left. Is that right? All of them shift to the left. So as you can see, any equilibrium, initial equilibrium tends to go down along supply of money, okay? So as you can see, that tends to reduce interest rate. So each lower interest rate is corresponding to the same income level. Is that right? So LM curve shifts what? Down. I told you, LM shifts down or up. Story doesn't matter. So that makes your job very easy. So if you have a final exam story, so just you need to translate that to IS or LM. End of the story. Okay, so imagine this, we know that. Now let me ask you my original question. Okay, and M cap shifts down. My original question is in this context of everything, IS and M, everything. So suppose because of expansion of online banking, demand for money falls. So what happens from graph point of view? We just did exercise. Okay? By the way, I told you before, it is worth it to repeat. If you don't understand something in a slide, so it means you missed something in previous slides. Definitely it's in the previous slides because I don't miss anything. I just go step by step. Okay? So, for example here, why an M curve shifts down? We just explained it in the previous slide. Okay? Okay, but here we know more information. So, income increases, interest rate falls from graphical point of view. From intuitive explanation, so demand for money falls, that is your shock. So, what is the next step? Anyone? Yes?
Demand for bonds goes up.
Exactly, and then?
People trying to buy bonds.
Exactly. Do you see that? You see? Because we are repeating this so many times, so you get used to it. So, you see, demand for money falls, demand for bonds rises. So, but when people need more bonds, so it means people try to buy bonds. So, price of bonds rises. Interest rate falls, investment rises, but investment is part of planned expenditure. Planned expenditure. So here, all of a sudden you have excess demand. Excess demand, price is fixed, firms have to sell out of inventories. So inventory levels start falling, so firms realize that demand is very strong, so they increase their output and also consumption rises. And by the way, here I don't write also because this is the right order. Is that right? This is already right order. So point A is your short run equilibrium. Is that right? So, okay. This is so important. Guys, this is the start of building third floor. Okay. What is third floor? In third floor, you see, I taught you two things. Short run, price is fixed. Long run, price is fully flexible. Now I am going to connect, this is the beauty of third floor. How do we go from short run to long run? So going from short run to long run means what? We need to let price vary. Okay, so that's why I am providing you with this exercise. Please remember this exercise for the rest of this course. Okay, please remember. In other section, I almost cried in front of class. Okay, because the students always forget this slide. And it causes so many questions in the future. So if you don't forget this slide, it saves you so many questions. So I know that, believe me, I have been doing this for a couple of decades, okay? Okay? So, as I told you, I mean, in my notes, I don't miss anything. Okay, I have perfected these notes over the course of 20 years. Okay, so suppose P goes down, or P goes up. I don't care. Okay, suppose P goes down. What happens here? in this graph. First of all, this is a money market, is that right? So first of all, you see, I am asking this question, price goes down. I ask you this question about money market, but I didn't ask you this question about goods market. It means change in price has no impact on goods market. So if you go back to your goods market, supply of goods was 45-degree line. 45-degree line is 45-degree line, okay? It has nothing to do with the price. And demand for money, your planned expenditure, is a function of consumption, no price. Investment, no price. G, no price. This is very, very popular mistake. People say, price goes down, things are cheaper, people consume more, invest more. No, goods market, everything is in real term. Please go back and double check. Price is nowhere to be found. This is confusion number one. Okay, so as you can see, impact is only to money market. Now, you tell me, money market, how do you show the impact? Just look at everything and look together. Yeah.
The supply curve will change.
Yes. So supply of real money goes where?
If the price goes down, it's like shape to the right.
Exactly, to the right. Why you are you are not sure. You see, actually, look at here. Oh. Okay, that's better. So you see here, demand for money, demand for real money has nothing to do with, again, price level. Demand for real money is a function of two real things. Real output, real interest rate. Who cares about price? Now, but as she said, supply of real money is a function of price. Why? Because what is real money? Real money is purchase power of money. Is that right? Purchase power of money. Purchase power of money is M over P. You see, suppose you have, M is nominal money. Suppose you have a $100 bill in your pocket. $100 bill is always $100 bill. However, depending on price level, purchase power of $100 bill is changing. So real money is purchase power of money, purchase power of $100 bill. Can you see that? So when price goes down, so it means you still have $100 in your pocket, but with $100 you can buy more stuff. So real money means purchase power, and exactly as she said, you see, when price goes down, supply of real money so goes up. That's it. Nothing else. Did you see that? Did you see that? So, guys, this is something that, unfortunately, I have to let you know that some students get stuck here for the rest of the course. Please don't be one of those people, okay? Starting not today, now, money supply is depending on two things, okay? See, this is supply of real money, is that right? So it is a function, starting now, it's a function of M, nominal money, central bank. Number two is depending on price level. Actually, I call that nature. Nature changes price level according to what we are going to talk about. Did you see that? Because as you will see, and you are going to see here, that means shift in LM curve. You can't imagine how many times people ask me in the past 2 decades, in this case, central bank didn't change money supply. How come you shifted LM curve? Starting now, LM curve can shift, you can see that, by changing M, central bank, traditional one, and also because of nature, price level. Some people don't get into the rest of this course, okay? Okay, so let's see. Actually, as soon as, you see, that's why I'm telling you, see, it looks like what? It looks like, it feels like increase in money supply. It is not. Okay, can you see it here? But it looks the same. You see? It looks the same in this fashion. See here? Remember, we have done this. When price goes down, so supply of real money rises. So no matter where your initial equilibrium were, so you move along demand curve. So interest rate tends to be lower, and then, interest rate tends to be lower for any income level. So if you connect all the points, and MGEB shifts down. Did you see that? So it feels like expansionary monetary policy. It feels only. It is not. Central bank doesn't do anything. All right? Be careful. The most popular question here: why an MGEB shifts up? Because central bank didn't do anything. How come? Because starting today, supply of money not only is depending on central bank, it's depending on what? Price level that I call nature. Is that right? Is it right? Okay, don't forget this thing. Okay? But people keep forgetting that. Okay, so let me write it here once for all life. And MGEB shifts there. Yeah? Okay. So, guys, don't forget that slide. Now I start building third flow. Okay. Actually, if you remember, starting last week, officially starting today, unofficially from last week. So, starting last week, whenever I had an S curve, whenever I had an M curve, if from graphical point of view, I intersected these two, or from algebraic point of view, if I solve ISLM curves, I got equilibrium point Y and R. So far. Okay? Not so far, until 5 minutes ago. Until before previous slide. Okay? So it means what? So the reason was this. Why I could, by intersecting ISLM curves, I could pin down equilibrium. Because I had two equations, two unknowns. So you see, R and Y. Two equations, two unknowns. Remember? R unknown, but G noun, T noun, M noun, P noun, short run. So I had two unknowns, output and interest rate. So when I solved intersected ISLM curves, I found a point, equilibrium point. But starting previous slide, if you solve ISLM curves together, you cannot get a point anymore. Do you know why? Remember, that's why the previous slide is so important. Because price, let price go up. Is that right? So why, when I solve these two together, I cannot get a point anymore? Starting 5 minutes ago. This is new. This is third level, third flow. Why? What's the problem? What's the problem? When I solve my S and LM curves together, I don't get a point anymore. Look at the equations. What is different in those two equations starting 5 minutes ago? Yeah? No? Nothing. The same. They look the same, but they are not really the same anymore. Yeah, they look the same, but they are not. Yeah? So think about that for a few seconds. Can you figure it out? So I used to have two equations, two unknowns, R and Y. Everything else was now. But what happened since last slide. Last slide, I started changing price level. Yeah. So now I have what? I have,
Three unknown.
sorry?
Three unknown.
So, I didn't hear.
Three unknown.
Exactly. I have still two equations, but I have three unknowns. Look at here. I have the same two equations, but I have three unknowns starting. That's why the previous slide is so important, because now R is unknown, Y is unknown, price is unknown too. Is that right? You cannot solve, you cannot pin down three unknowns using two equations. Because now price is also variable. So when you have two equations and three unknowns, if you combine two equations, what do you get? This is the maximum thing that you can do from algebraic point of view. When you have two equations, three unknowns, if you combine them, so what's the result? If I combine these two, I would get what? Let me get rid of this. I am going to get one equation, yeah, two unknowns. Can you see that? I get one equation, not 1 point. So, how can I said if you combine these two, you get one equation, two unknowns. So it means what? It means output is unknown, R is unknown, P is unknown. Okay? When I combine these two, so what does that mean combine algebraically? It means eliminating one of these three. You have to eliminate one of these three. You get the remaining two, one equation, the other two. Yeah? That's algebra. That you are going to do it in your tutorials. Okay? But my question is, okay, from algebraic point of view, you can eliminate each of them. You can decide, up to you. But which one is better to eliminate? Which ones we get, we hold, we keep, and which one we eliminate? Y, R, and P. Output quantity, P price, real interest rate. Which one possibly we don't need to see? Of course, from algebraic point of view, we can eliminate each of them, yeah? But from economic point of view, eliminating one of them is more desirable, more meaningful. Anyone? I eliminate what? Which one? Last call. Yeah. You see, I am going to eliminate interest rate. Because if I eliminate interest rate, I get a relationship between quantity and quantity and price. You see? It's like microeconomics. Price versus quantity. Is that right? You see? Of course, it looks like that. It is not. Okay? So you see, if I eliminate this, I am going to get a relationship, price versus quantity. Is that right? It makes sense from economic point of view. It makes sense from economic point of view. So in fact, when I have price versus quantity, I can talk about demand, supply. Is that right? So I am going to eliminate interest rate. So let me see here. Of course, I cannot do it here because I don't have the functions. In your tutorial exercises, you have the functions. So here, I eliminate interest rate. How? Just let me explain that, but you are going to do it yourself algebraically. For example, solve this, just an example. For R as a function of the rest, and plug R here. Is that right? This is the best idea that I have. Okay, so here R vanishes and everything else would be there. So let me do it just symbolically. Again, practically you are going to do it in your exercises and you have to just do that. Okay, So if I solve for R and then plug it there, so you get an equation. I told you, one relation, two equation, one equation, two unknowns. What are unknowns? Output, quantity, price. GDP deflator, real GDP quantity. Okay. So see, output as a function of price. By the way, everything here would be here, except interest rate that I eliminated myself. Okay? For example, look at here, G is here, T is here, M over P is here. Can you see that? Only interest rate is not there. Okay. So, by the way, I call that relation has a name. It's called aggregate demand because it comes from demand side of the economy. So, what is officially definition of aggregate demand curve? Aggregate demand curve is representing all possible equilibrium points in goods market and in money market together at the same time. You see, because aggregate demand curve is combination of IS and LM. What does that mean? Combination from algebraic point of view. Okay, so it means both of them hold. Okay, you remember that intersection? That I am going to do it graphically. So all possible combinations of price and output that bring the goods market and money market to equilibrium at the same time. Agree everyone with me here? So, but let me remind you of one thing very important. Remember, move along the curve versus shifting the curve. Yeah? So, this aggregate demand curve has how many variables? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables. So if you want to draw this perfectly, you need a five-dimensional graph. But we have only 2. So you know how we handle that. So price versus quantity, remember, this is which makes more sense for us in economics. Everything else is given. Given G, given T, given M. So it means don't touch fiscal policies, don't touch monetary policies. Then what would be relationship between price and output? Okay, so guys, these are what? Shifters. Yeah? G, T, N are variables that cause a shift in aggregate demand. But if price changes, if output changes, you have move along. Is that right, everyone? Move along. Okay. So actually, I am going to prove that aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. I just drew it here, okay? But next slide, I am going to prove aggregate demand curve is downward sloping intuitively. And next slide, after that, I am going to prove that graphically. Okay, of course, you are going to do that algebraically yourself. So you have in exercises, you have C, you have G, you have investment functions, and you have demand for money, you have money supply, you have price level. Sorry, price level is endogenous now. You combine all these things, you get aggregate demand curve. And you are going to have a question like that in final exam with probability of 100%. No strangers here, is that right? Nobody listens to us. I cannot be more obvious than that. Okay, make sure you do numerical exercises. Okay. So it means what? You have all the functions. So you must derive an S curve. You must derive an M curve, and then you need to combine these two and get what? Aggregate demand curve. Is that right? This is for sure in final exam. 100% sure. I told you already, US in final exam. Okay. It's not surprising. Some of you who listened to me in this class ended up with 114 in final exam. We have, if I remember correctly, 5 people getting midterm test above 100 because I curved up. You remember I told you, I keep class average between 70 71. So I kept your average by adding 15 marks to everyone. So average now, because one of you asked me what average, so average, class average is something like a 70.5. I told you. So 15 marks I added to it. So some of you ended up with, so somebody got 99 naturally. So what can I do? I'm 140. Okay, so now I am taking my final exam. Just listen to me, okay? Okay, so intuitively, why aggregate demand curve is downward sloping? Okay, so suppose price goes up or price goes down. I don't care. Okay, so I chose price goes up. Okay, but don't forget that I am talking about why aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. One curve. So it means I keep G fixed, T fixed, M fixed. Is that right? Of course, we are going to exercise that in future. Okay? But for now, keep them fixed. When price goes up, what happens exactly next? M fixed, T fixed, G fixed. All of a sudden, price goes up. What happens next? See, nominal money is fixed. Central bank doesn't do anything. You want that $100 in your pocket? So when price goes up, purchase power of your money in your pocket goes down. So it means supply, you yourself shifted. You know, of course this is opposite, okay? So supply of money shrinks. Supply real money. Supply of real money goes down. Why? Because money supply is fixed, nominal. Fixed, central bank doesn't do anything. Price goes up, purchase power of that much money goes down. So what happens? People run out of liquidity because everything is more expensive. So people need liquidity, but central bank is sitting there doing nothing. So people need to get more liquidity. You tell me, when people need more liquidity, so what do people do? Yes?
Sell bonds.
Yeah, they sell bonds. Because central bank is not doing anything, okay? But your portfolio is M plus bonds, okay? So people have to sell bonds. So when supply of money shrinks, so people, as she said, sell bonds. But imagine if every bond sell bonds become cheaper. When bonds become cheaper, so it means what? Interest rate would be what? Your bonds market. Interest rate would be higher. When interest rate is higher, cost of borrowing is higher, therefore investment is lower. Investment is lower. Investment is part of planned expenditure. That is part of planned expenditure. So planned expenditure goes down, it means what? All of a sudden you have excess supply of goods. Where should I put them? Back to inventories. But you know that inventory levels are limited. So firms do what? Cut their production. So did you see that? Price goes up, output goes down. So here we proved that aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. Agree, everyone? Do you agree? And is there any step which doesn't make sense? Is everything okay? Okay. Agree demand curve is downward sloping. Now, you remember, in this course we do everything 3 ways. Algebra, I told you, go home, solve, find IS, find LM, combine them, find AD, okay? So, now, let's do the algebraic version. Let's do the graphical version. Graphical version to make sure that we are in the right track. Okay, so you see, did you see what I am building the 3rd floor? 3rd floor, I have created a new coordinates, price versus output. You see that? So that is my 2nd floor. Now I am building the 3rd floor. So if you go back to chapter 11, I created ISLM curves based on what? Demand for money, supply of money, demand for goods, supply of goods, and money market. Okay, this is 2nd floor. So okay, let's start 2nd floor. Okay, I can draw IS curve. You see, because IS curve is very easy. Look at that. I have everything. I have G, I have I have C, IS curve. But I cannot draw an M curve. Why? Remember, after that slide I told you, I tried, I begged, okay? Life became completely different in this course. In the past, IS, LM. But yeah, I can draw IS, but I cannot draw LM. Why is that? What's the problem now? Yes? Exactly. You see, look at an M curve. An M curve is including 3 variables. You see? It's all good days are gone, okay? You see, I have Y, R, but I used to have fixed price. Not anymore. So you have to give me what? In order to draw an M curve, you need to give me price level. You remember price fixed short term? So I choose randomly price level. Okay. So now, as soon as I have that price level, now I can draw an M curve. But be careful, not an M curve, an M1 curve. An M curve corresponding to price level, P1. So you see, I told you, now you have a point. When price is fixed, so you can solve ISLM and find a point. Did you see that? In general, you cannot find a point. It gives you aggregate demand curve that we are going to construct. Okay, so that Y1 is corresponding to the P1. Okay, suppose price goes down. You remember just the previous slide? So if price goes down, what happens to LM curve? And M curve shifts where? Exactly. No, this way. yeah. This way works too. But I told you, philosophically, LM can only go up and okay, yes. So yes, LM curve shifts down. Okay, so I have now I can pin down one point. That one point equilibrium Y2 is corresponding to P2. Okay, but be careful. I told you, you can go home and repeat this exercise 10 times. Okay, you see, I don't know. Choose different prices, different LM curves, okay, different points, and just connect them. But because we don't have time here, 2 would be enough for me, okay? I just connect them. And you have this is your aggregate demand curve graphically. This is graphical derivation. So aggregate demand curve is geometric location of all combinations of price and output that bring goods market, money market to equilibrium at the same time, not together. Yeah? And by the way, something somebody asked in other section that you see, in general, your curves are nonlinear. Okay, because you see, for example, investment function could be nonlinear. Demand, look at here. Demand for money more likely nonlinear. Okay, so that's why aggregate demand curve is in general the same thing for IS and M curves. You understand? So in general they are nonlinear. Okay, but for final exam, if you have a question like this without numbers, if you have what I call qualitative changes, you can. I have seen for midterm tests, some of you have ruler. Yeah, you can draw linear things. It's okay. Okay, but remember, in general, life is nonlinear. Variable, I mean, functions are nonlinear. There is no guarantee that functions are linear. Okay, so I draw. But if you want to get nice graphs, yeah, feel free to use rulers. But be careful. If the question is not a numerical question, because sometimes when you have a numerical question, if you get a linear equation, you cannot show it nonlinear or other way around, okay? But in general, for questions like this, qualitative questions, it's fine, okay? So, now, this is my almost third floor from demand side, because we need to add supply side to it, okay? So, and you know my plan. My plan is always practice, okay? For example, you see guys, starting today, starting like now, okay? When you have aggregate demand curve, any shock, any policy, anything that affects goods market or money market, either of them, would affect AD, aggregate demand curve. Remember, because AD is a combination of IS and LM. If anything shifts IS, anything shifts LM, would shift AD. Is that right? Okay, now but once for whole life, let's practice. Suppose government applies expansionary fiscal policies, increasing G or decreasing T. Okay, guys, can you help me with this? What happens to AD? So in future, we are not going to explain that. But once for whole life, let's see what happens. If government applies expansionary fiscal policy, G, T, what happens to AD? Can you guess? Of course, we are going to find it, but it's a very good idea, you just get intuition. So AD would what? Sorry? Exactly, it shifts to the right. It shifts to the right, exactly. See, AD shifts right, left. Why? Remember, because I chose prices randomly. Is that right? So, let's see. See? So we chose different prices and we got different LM curves. So I don't care how many LM curves, how many prices you have. So I know one thing. IS shifts to the right when G goes up or T goes down. Remember, we have done these exercises. Can you see that? I don't leave anything behind. I do everything. Okay, so when that happens, see here? So it means if your equilibrium was E1, now E prime 1. So it means at any price level, output would be higher, income would be higher, okay? Actually, this is aggregate demand curve, aggregate demand. So when G goes up, government demand goes up. Okay, so at any price, demand would be higher. If T goes down, so it means what? Consumption would be higher. Private consumption, more demand, aggregate demand to the right. If, next slide, if money supply goes up, investment goes up. investment is demand, aggregate demand. So all shift AD to the right. Okay. So but just intuition, graph, everything must match. Okay. So you see, each point goes to the right. So can you see here? So as she said, any expansionary impact shifts aggregate demand curve to the right. So anything which has contractionary impact would shift AD to the left, obviously, because this is, after all, aggregate demand. Is that right? Okay. So you see, I put already those two signs over there. A reminder. I keep track of these signs everywhere. Make sure you remember that. Okay? So G positively, T negatively. If T goes up, it's contractionary. AD shifts to the left. How about this one? Money supply. Of course, I put already sign over there, but let's investigate that. Let's investigate this. What if money supply goes up? Money supply goes up. Okay, so again, so you see I have two price levels, I have two demand and M curves. So if money supply goes up, whatever an M curve you have, just shifts down. All and M curves shift down. Anything that you have. Can you see it here? So when an M curve shifts down, look at that. So at any price level, output would be larger. Why? Easy. Because remember, higher money supply means lower interest rate, more investment. More investment, more demand. So at any price level, so there would be more demand, more output, more supply. So it doesn't matter how many prices you have, how many M curves you have, all of them by higher money supply means lower interest rate, more investment, more planned expenditure, more demand, more supply. See here? More output. So aggregate demand curve shifts to the right. Is that right? So see, that's why I already put positive sign over there. Is that right? Can you see it here? Yeah? So did I do all possible exercises? So any shock, any policy, expansionary shifts AD to the right. Any contractionary shock policy shifts AD to the left. Okay. Actually, this is aggregate demand. What is remaining to complete my third flow? I developed aggregate demand. What do I need? Supply. Aggregate supply, exactly. You know that any demand needs a supply. So aggregate demand, the question is aggregate supply. Okay, where does aggregate supply come from? We already have done that, by the way. Remember chapter 10? In chapter 10, I already introduced aggregate supply. Can you help me with aggregate supply? In chapter 10? Anyone? Can you refresh your memory? Chapter 10, aggregate supply. What was the shape of aggregate supply?
For the long run, it's gonna be a vertical curve.
Yeah, yes. I wasn't sure. I went by two scenarios. Exactly as she said. Horizontal, short run, Keynesian, vertical, classical view, long run. If you take CO2, they introduce in somewhere in between, okay, upward sloping. But for this course, Horizontal, short run, vertical, long run. Okay, I just copied that here. You see, it took me 2 whole chapters to develop aggregate demand curve, but in half a chapter, in chapter 10, I already developed aggregate supply curve, but for full aggregate supply curve, you need CO6. Okay, chapter 14, which is not part of your discourse. Okay, so here you go, guys. This is the structure of, this is IS curve, we developed it. You remember second floor? This is second floor, this is third floor. So, you remember first floor? I'm relying on your memory. First floor is what? 45 deadline, planned expenditure, you remember equilibrium goods market, and supply of real money, demand for real money goods, okay? That's first floor. So, you need to visualize that. Second floor, third floor. So IS, LM, I developed AD out of IS, LM, and I developed aggregate supply curve based on short run versus long run. Short run versus long run. Is that right? Okay. You see, point O is representing a long run equilibrium, which by the way is short run equilibrium too. Okay, so when economy is at point O, it's going to be at point O as long as you haven't applied any policy, any shock, any change. Okay, look at that. At point O, 5 curves must intersect each other. So IS, LM, AD, long run aggregate supply curve, short run aggregate supply curve, and also all of them must intersect each other at y bar, y equal y bar. Can you see that? That is when we call long run equilibrium. Long run equilibrium. Look at that. So, did you see that? It took me 2 chapters for this. Okay, guys, to learn about long run, you have this, and you have this from chapter 10. You remember, recall from chapter 10? So this shows how we go from short run to long run. How we go from short run to long run. Okay? Actually, I call this prescription table. You remember that? Now, if you are interested to know why this is the case, so you need to take what? CO6, okay? For BO6, actually, I feel that it's kind of incomplete. You have to cover that in this. But then you have to drop something from BO6. So they thought, yeah, because you see, this is possibly enough. So if you want to know the philosophy behind this, there is one whole chapter in BO6 about CO6 about this. Okay, but for us, you need that long run structure, which shows long run, and then how we go to short run to long run, this table. Okay, before we start distributing the final midterm test, let's do one exercise, and then we stop there. Look at that. My favorite fiscal policy, and I am going to repeat that for everything in the future. Okay? So, suppose we are at long run equilibrium, point O, is that right? And then all of a sudden, government applies fiscal policy. Did you see that? I continuously do the same thing, but with a better and better, more and more comprehensive model. Okay, and I am going to do that next time using open economies. Okay, so you have to know closed economies. Okay, guys, help me with this. Otherwise, you don't go home. Okay, you don't get your marks. Okay, so part 1. This is exactly final exam, guys. Yeah, don't tell anybody. Okay, so graph. What happens? Graph increase in G. And we have done all the exercises. What should I do? Yes?
The aggregate demand shape
Right, okay. What else? You see, before that we have done another exercise. Anybody this side? So she's right. We just did exercises before, just one slide ago. But you remember in the beginning of the hour, the beginning of class, increase in G did what? Kind of we started the class today. Yes? Oh yes. You remember? Oh yes. So you remember that was earlier than this one. So IS shifts to the right. You remember? I am not explaining that anymore because we have done group. And just previous slide. AD shifts to the right. Is that right? We have done both. So actually, you can shift IS any amount that you want. You can shift AD any amount. However, the only thing here is they have to match each other. One problem that I have in final exam, sometimes people draw the first graph, upper graph correctly, second graph correctly, but they don't match. Okay. So see, output must be the same. Output must match. Okay, guys. Point A is called short-run equilibrium. As you can see, when you have more demand, I am going to explain. More demand, inventories, and then more output. Okay, do you remember? In short run, at the same price, be careful, definition of short run. At the same price, firms sell as much as they can. Okay, so at this price, when G is higher, firms can sell this much. So A is short-run equilibrium. Okay, but how do I go to long-run equilibrium? Remember that table? Prescription table? So in short run, going from short run to long run is about only one thing, guys. It starts with price adjustment. That's it. You remember that? Short run, price is fixed. Long run, fully flexible. Just that. The start is price adjustment. Okay, so you see, that is short run equilibrium. What happens in long run? In long run, price is based on prescription. So price start going up. Short O to A is kind of fast, but going from A to new long run is kind of slower. Okay, so it means what? Price keeps going up. Price keeps going up. Is that right? But how far does it go? This far. Why this far? Because at point B, so-called long-run equilibrium, Y is equal to Y bar, and price stops. Over, take up. Here. So B is long-run equilibrium in that graph. But you tell me, where is long-run equilibrium here? Imagine price gradually going up. What happens here? Yes?
The LM curve will shave off.
Oh, why is that?
Because the price increase.
Okay, price increases, then of course we are going to write that down. But intuitively, when price keeps going up, your supply of real money shrinks. Okay, remember? This is the part that I said some students get stuck. Okay, because as exactly she said, money supply is fixed, but price keeps going up. So supply of real money shrinks. Therefore, LM curve gradually shifts up. How far up? This much up. So when output goes back to Y bar. Output goes back to Y bar. So point B is long-run equilibrium. You see that? Here you go. That's the graph. So can you see that? For final exam, your graph would be a little bit more. Okay. So intuition. Now intuition is longer. Intuition is including what? Full slide. Okay. Why? You need to do short run first, long run second. Is that right, everyone? So short. You have everything. already. Okay, you just need to write them. So G goes up, planned expenditure goes up. Remember, nothing new. You know all the elements. I just put together everything that you know. So planned expenditure goes up. Excess demand, inventories fall, output rises, demand for money rises. You see, nothing is new. So if there is anything new, just let me know. People need more money, so they don't need bonds, they start selling bonds. Okay, but if everybody decides to sell bonds, bonds become cheaper, that means interest rate is higher. Everything is happening in short run. This is happening in short run. Okay, so interest rate rises, investment falls. Also, out of the order, consumption goes up, and also, actually, right, because we are talking about short run, long run, recession. In short run, traditionally, in this case, we have boom. You have to talk about unemployment too. So you see, here, output goes above 5 bar, full employment output. Unemployment would be too little, less than full employment rate. Okay, that is short run. What happens is consider short run, long run separately. Long run, I told you, long run we go by prescription. Okay, prescription says what? Output is above full employment output. You know what happens, price. Output, long run is about price adjustment. So price keeps going up. When price goes up, real money supply shrinks. People need more liquidity. So it starts selling bonds. Price of bonds would be lower. Interest rate goes up again. You see, interest rate goes up twice. So investment goes down twice. But investment is part of planned expenditure. Inventories, do you see that? Output goes back, goes down. But how far down? Output goes down until we go back to full employment output. And we talked about this. Unemployment output have negative correlation with each other. So output, unemployment rises back to natural rate. Natural rate. So guys, short from now. Sometimes I am doing a final exam. So graph, explanation. In final exam, I may ask you new kind of questions, okay? So that is the question. Remember, I started from long run equilibrium, initial long run equilibrium, short run, new long run equilibrium. This is the plan. Now, I may ask you to compare old and new long run equilibrium points. After all, both of them are long run equilibrium points. But my question would be, how are they different? Is that right? How all variables are different? Okay, so I make a question like that, but be careful. My question would be this: comparing old and new long-run equilibrium points. So forget about short run. So a mistake that people make in final exam is just this: people get entangled, get busy with short run. Forget about short run. I am talking about long run to long run only. Okay? So for final exam, don't get involved with short run. So from long run to long run, output goes up, down, the same. You understand? That's it. So all variables: output, consumption, investment, and government spending. My suggestion is, as you will see why in future, write IS curve, because sometimes if you get confused during the test, exam, so this helps you. Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you: output, overall, output would be what? Long run to long run. Output would be more, less, or the same? Sorry? The same. Remember, by definition, by bar. Okay, yeah, that's good. Consumption? Consumption? Is it the same? Because our income is the same, no tax, so disposable income is the same, therefore consumption is the same. Investment? Long run to long run. Investment, yes? Sorry?
False.
Yeah, false. Actually, you see, it falls twice. Okay, so overall false. Yes, overall false. Actually, if you didn't figure that out, it's very easy because y is fixed, c is fixed, but g goes up because we did it ourselves. Okay, don't forget that. Okay, so g goes up. Investment must fall. Investment must fall. Okay, interest rate goes up twice. What happens to price level? What happens? Price level goes. Look at that. Price goes up. Okay. Okay, actually, in the long run, fiscal policies have three major problems. Number one is this one. By the way, all economic policies have long-run problems, okay? Fiscal policies, expansionary fiscal policies have number one problem, crowding out the credit. See here? G goes up, investment goes down. Private investment goes down. And this is not good in the long run. In long run, investment goes down, as you will see, horizon, very long run, economic expansion slows down. Number two, it causes inflationary pressure. Have you seen here? Number one, number two. Number three that I forgot to write here, what happens to deficit? Actually, another thing that you can add, I forgot. What happens to deficit? G goes up, deficit goes up. And deficit goes up means what? Government has to borrow more. So government debt goes up. And many people don't think about that, but you know that from, are you following the US, Mr. Trump and Elon Musk? So Elon Musk and Trump agreed that the biggest problem that US is facing is too much debt. Actually, in other class, somebody found it, $36 trillion. And you remember Trump and Elon Musk got into fight with each other, and now they don't talk to each other. And the reason is what? Because Elon Musk believes Mr. Trump budget, big beautiful budget, is not good enough to reduce because it increases deficit, increases debt again. So that is biggest problem that we are facing. Oh, okay, let me stop here. So next time we are going to talk about monetary policy. But before I forget, I don't want to take this back home. Let me give you your papers.